Drop it.
Hello and welcome to Be Real, the Maryland Real Estate Podcast. I'm Brad Cox with the Vesta Group of Long & Foster. Joining me as always is...
Michael Becker of Sierra Pacific Mortgage.
Michael, we have a guest with us today.
Our first guest.
Our very first guest. Our special guest.
I would agree.
Yes, Mr. Randy Cottrell of Blue Crab Inspections. Randy, thank you for being here, dude.
I appreciate it. Just happy to join you guys and be part of the conversation today. Looking forward to it.
Thank you. And I should have said I'm looking into the beautifully angelic and patient faces of Michael and Randy.
Why is that?
Because I was an hour and a half late today.
I'm never even that late.
For a very good reason, though, writing an offer for a buyer who needed to get an offer in on time. But
these days, it's not like you can wait.
Gentlemen, I just want to say I appreciate your flexibility. Thank you.
No worries. I took the time and sent some numbers to a client who had questions about a couple properties as well.
Beautiful. So now let's bitch and moan about Lamar Jackson.
Well, you guys, we always like to start the show with a little banter, right?
Yeah.
And I said, driving in here, I am so sick and tired of hearing about it. Everything I see on the web. In fact, national media is making it they always like controversy. They're trying to make Baltimore look bad based on the way that we've handled it. Maybe it has been handled best, but I'm about done with it. Look, sign him or don't sign him. I don't care at this point.
That's true. I mean, and if you pay him what everybody's pay the man.
Yeah.
You pay the man what he wants, then you've got a salary cap issue. The rest of the team is hobbled. Not a recipe.
Let me ask you a question.
Success.
How well? So in football, most contracts aren't fully guaranteed. It seems to be that's what he wants. Other sports, they are.
Yeah.
What's Baltimore's history with fully guaranteed contracts?
That's a good question. I don't have an answer to that.
Really? How about Chris Davis?
Yeah.
How will that work out for us?
Sure.
Right?
I mean, the Mets still celebrate Bobby B.
He deferred his compensation every year. He gets like $1 million.
Yeah.
So they're still paying him. We don't want to be paying for somebody. Now, look, let's say he gets the contract he wants, we might regret it, but it's not been the Ravens' history to sell the farm to sign one player.
And for good reason.
And I think we would sign him for a reasonable contract, meaning we give him a lot of money.
A reasonable
However,
contract.
it could be said, they may have missed the boat to get a decent contract done. They should have probably signed him after his third season, like Josh Allen got signed that year.
Yeah, and
right?
look, the guy's a playmaker. He moves, but he's not perfect.
Nobody is.
Right? So...
I'm just done with it. I want it. Good news is probably this time next week when we're recording it, we'll know what happened because the franchise tag has to be placed March 7th.
Well, the good thing is that Harbs and Bishotti listen to us so regularly that they'll hear this and they'll just act on whatever we say.
The good thing is that spring training here is here and March Madness is here.
It's exactly right.
The men's and the lady Terps are playing well.
So
I've got distractions going on here.
Oh, we're excited.
Outstanding
about the Terps.
point. We should be talking about college basketball and baseball instead of football, and I think that might be my frustration. Except the Terps are scaring me. They shouldn't have lost at Ohio State. I feel like they got to win at Penn State or at least one game. I think they're in the tournament. But if they lose badly those last two games, they could become a bubble team real quick. Like if they lose against Penn State and the first round of the Big Ten championship, it's possible. They got 20 wins. 20 wins in the Big Ten usually get you in, right?
With a W over Purdue.
Yeah,
you know
Purdue,
what I mean?
that's huge.
That's
huge.
But again, that was okay. So if it's okay for them to beat Purdue at home, I think it might be okay for them to maybe catch a tough game against Ohio State.
Well, personally speaking, did you watch the game?
Yeah, well, I'm not saying they played great.
But the refs were awful. It seemed like the technical call early.
They're in. Look, okay,
I think they're into it.
Right.
But you know what? Yeah. If they're an 8 or 9 seed, they win the first round. Who do they play the next game?
Right.
Number 1 seed.
Oh, I'm not saying I just want additional basketball.
You know what else can I say? Just that how much I'm loving having two people here because I don't have to talk as much and my voice will probably not be as hoarse at the end of this.
Well, we don't want to monopolize the conversation.
No, but that's, hey, guys, I'm thrilled to have
enough
this
about
going
sports.
on.
Let's talk about what we're here for, Brad.
So
Yes, sir.
Let's get into the rundown.
Yes.
Michael.
We'll talk a little bit about mortgage applications, and it's no surprise.
Oof.
Again, this is the MBA's
That's the sound effect of the week. Oof.
Oof.
Yeah.
The MBA's weekly survey. Mortgage Bankers Association every week comes out with a survey about applications, and for the third straight week, applications are down. Obviously, rates have, well, not obviously, but it's probably because rates continue to rise. I went back and did a little bit of, well, let me first say what happened this week. Mortgage applications decreased 5.7 from 1 week earlier, according to data from the Mortgage Bankers Association weekly mortgage application surveys for the week ending February 24th. This came out March 1st, so the rate that they're posting is 6.71. Every week we always say they're a little bit behind. Obviously, it's because they're surveying people the week prior. Rates are a little bit higher than that, but for 3 consecutive weeks, and probably next week, the fourth week we'll say it, we've seen mortgage rates increase. And during that time, so rates declined in their survey that was produced on February 8th. It's probably the end of January, early February's rates.
Yeah.
Mortgage applications that week were up 7.4%. Since then, they've declined 7.7%, 13.3%, and now 5.7%. They
Good
are at
times.
Purchase applications are 28 years lows.
28 years.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a long time.
Older
So it's
than my
obvious.
kids.
The
Older than
point
my
to be
kids.
made is it's obvious
Yeah.
that higher mortgage rates definitely do affect activity
Yeah.
in housing in the mortgage world. Obviously, I mean, it's the number that jumps out. We talk about it, Randy, every single week. They have a refinance index, and they always do a year-over-year number. The refinance index decreased 6% week over week, and year over year it's down 74%. And the interesting thing,
74%.
well, there have been
right?
times it's been higher. There were weeks where it was 78 or 80% down year over year. But we're now getting into last February, March's rates where they'd already started to rise. So we were seeing declines back then.
Yeah.
And we're still 74%. Truth, I mean,
Nobody's going to refi now. It doesn't make sense.
unless you're talked into doing a cash out refinance and you don't have a rate in the 3s. Let's say you have a rate in the 4s or 5s, and you have a ton of equity and you have a ton of debt to pay off. That's about it. Very few and far between refinances.
Going to be a very small pool for that. Yeah.
Exactly right. So rates keep rising ever since the data's come out. The Fed meeting, and Fed speakers been talking about how they're hyper-focused on inflation. They've got to beat inflation. We had one Fed official, I'm trying to think, I think it was Waller, came out and said, it was a non-voting member, and they suggested that they were in favor of a 50 basis point hike last time around, and maybe we should look at it this time. Market's not pricing that in. I don't think it'll happen, but just to bring up the specter of a potential another half-point hike kind of means the bond markets are hyper-focused on inflation. And the reason I say that is we've seen some crazy reports move markets. This week on Thursday, it was a number out of Germany on year-over-year inflation being worse. German inflation was worse over worse. And then there was also an aspect of prices paid in the ISM manufacturing index.
Yeah.
That increased. It's kind of like the PPI, producer price index.
Mm-hmm.
They're worried about there's inflation coming back into the pipeline. I'm not sure that it's sustained. The battle against inflation is not going to be a straight down. Now, it was going for 4 consecutive months, it was down.
We were doing okay.
Month over month, we saw a little uptick in it. So just like a jagged edge, it's going to go down, but there might be months it goes up.
The sawtooth.
However, in the short time, I do a vote on bankrate.com.
Yeah.
My vote this week was for higher interest rates just because markets are hyper-focused. That vote goes from Wednesday to Wednesday. I think we'll see rates next Wednesday will probably be higher than they were this Wednesday.
Yeah.
By the time we record next week's podcast, one of the biggest economic reports will be out. And that is Friday's non-farm payroll. It's usually out the first Friday of the month for some reason. I guess the Bureau of Labor Statistics couldn't get their... I almost said the bad word.
Their act together.
Their act together. You would have had to cut that out. You had to cut that out. I one time said the F-bomb on a radio show.
Yeah, I know.
But that also, because of the 7-second delay, got cut out.
Yes.
However, it's the biggest economic report. It's supposed to come out the first Friday. For some reason, it's delayed a week. I think maybe because February was a short month. It's the non-farm payroll report. January started all this nonsense. the January report, they were expecting 200,000
employment
jobs.
Numbers and
over half million jobs were created that month. And that's a concern because if the job market's still tight, there are potential increases in wages. We have seen increases in wages, although they're not keeping up with inflation, but that wage push and spiral inflation is a concern.
Yeah.
The Federal Reserve would like to see a lower number than that, like to see a little, not weakness, but like to see the labor market slow down. That would probably lead to lower inflation and we'd see lower interest rates. So week over week, I do think rates will rise. Let's see. I have the sense that maybe we'll see a more realistic number in February. January's number was affected by a big annual revision, and they also did a seasonally adjusted big number for January. The non-seasonally adjusted number was 2.5 million jobs lost. Most Januaries do see job losses because of
from the holidays.
Yeah, seasonal hires, right? Okay,
right. But they seasonally adjusted. Now I went back and looked last year's. Last year's seasonal adjustment was a little bigger, so maybe it wasn't all seasonal adjustment. We'll see. Let's see what February's pertains. It's one of the worst things, Randy, that I have in this business in the mortgage industry. I'm always rooting for bad economic data,
right?
Because you want to see rates get a little bit better. Truth be told, if inflation went up a little bit from 3.4%, it wouldn't be. It's
the worst thing in the world.
Worst thing in the world. So that's the data on the mortgage rate and mortgage application world. Brad, you have some local real estate data.
I do. So Baltimore Metro stats for the last 7 days.
Okay.
Next week, we should be recording
the monthly.
With the monthly. But this week, we're doing the last 7 days. So over the last 7 days, there were actually some pretty big swings this week.
Really?
Active listings. Last week, we're at 276. This week, we had 362 active listings. That's a 31% increase.
Well, that's a good sign.
Yes, it is. We need that inventory, so let's keep it coming. But pending sales last week, 664. This week, 789. So we sold through quite a bit as well. That's up 18%, but not as high as the active, which I kind of like.
Is that a seasonal thing? I mean, from my standpoint, the spring buying season every year seems to start a little bit earlier. It used to start in
that whole thing's gone out the window.
Right.
There is no more
spring.
There
buying.
is no more spring market. It starts in January.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So settled. Last week we had 375. 766.
What?
766.
That's a doubling.
It's more than doubled. 104.27%.
I'm pretty good at the math, though.
Yeah.
You give me credit figuring out that double that.
That was right on the tip. Yeah. And we can
did
all
the mic
snap
pick
our
that out?
fingers.
That was good. Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah. Okay.
I just pat myself on the back here a little bit.
Yes. All right. So properties that went off the market for whatever reason, whether it was withdrawn or expired or canceled or temporarily off the market, all those combined. Last week, 239. This week, 412. So we saw a bunch more come off the market for some reason. A lot of them, I looked, were expired listings. So
interesting.
We're going to start
they
to
may
see.
They can come back on.
Well, with the mortgage rates going higher and that's moderating demand a little bit, there are going to be some. Here's the thing. We're still getting, if it's an HGTV ready home, we've talked about this before, we still see multiple offers. But if it's not, those properties are tending to sit for a while longer. And when they sit, because the sellers had some aspirational pricing, they're going to sit for longer and they're going to get frustrated and those listings are going to expire or get withdrawn. So we'll see how that all shakes out. But it's a little bit of an uptick this week, 72% increase.
Is a little bit
of uptick. But now that's all those categories combined. But I did see a pretty healthy uptick in the expired listings. All right, days on the market, as I just mentioned, in general, because the demand's softening a bit, average is up 13.94% from 36 to 41. The median.
That's longer than I would have thought.
The median's flat.
Are there specific properties that probably drag that out?
Well,
make the average
could be
longer.
any of those, right? Any of the ones that are not super fixed up.
Right. They can sit for a while.
Sellers, that's the advice to you. If you want your property to get the highest value, talk to somebody about what you should do, where your money is best spent to get the best return on that investment to make your property stand out.
Right.
And when it stands out, it's going to sell quickly and it's going to sell for top dollar. but you don't want to spend, throw good money after bad.
Well, yeah, if it costs more, if you increase the sales price $50,000, it costs you $60,000 to do it.
That doesn't make sense, right?
If, however, it helps you sell a house that you got to sell.
I just put together an analysis for a seller this past week, and I went through and I said, look, here's what an investor would need to do on this property to flip it. That includes things like the profit margin they're going to need to make, the commission that they're going to have to pay on the selling side, all the closing costs they're going to have, all the carrying costs for taxes and utilities. You have to bake all that in if somebody's going to flip the property. So I said, that's your low end. Then you've got the investor who's going to buy and hold for a rental property. They don't need the profit margin because they're going to have cash flow.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a little bit of a different story. You can get a higher number from them, and sometimes a substantially higher number from them. It just depends on the degree of your.
What about the next category?
Well, so the next category is going to be those buyers who want to live in the home, make it theirs, right? So
this is what I want to talk about because at the bottom here you say, what does this mean for buyers and sellers? And we had a little conversation. Randy was in on it.
Yeah.
About everybody wants turnkey properties. How do we get buyers? I mean, so if property values have slowed, the increase in property values has slowed. Let's say it goes flat or just a few percent year over year. Those turnkey properties are going to appreciate the least.
That's
the people
true.
who buy a home that needs a little bit of work are probably going to see much greater appreciation.
That's a very good point.
Well, how do we get buyers to be interested?
Well, at some point, I actually have an episode planned.
Okay, good.
On financing your renovations.
I love it.
As part of your purchase.
Yeah.
You're going to have to.
The renovation loan. So we'll get
especially
into that.
I was talking a little bit during the break too about, I read an article, first-time home buyers dropped to 26%. They're being priced out of markets. They may have to start looking at buying a house that needs a lot of work and is probably a rehab candidate. Those loans they went away because everybody wanted turnkey and people were more than happy to fix them up and sell them that way because values were going up so much.
Right.
I mean, reason you couldn't buy a home, it was tough to buy a home that needed rehab, is investors were pricing you out, beating you out to the market. They were able to get in there and get it, right?
And with cash.
You have cash, you have money, right? You have power, right? And
right.
I completely agree with where your mind's going with that. As the dollar becomes a little bit more challenging and gets stretched even further, well, then people aren't able to save as much money to when, a challenge comes up in their house. I need to, I don't replace water heater, whatever. But like that deferred maintenance, like that honey to-do list, maybe they kick the can just a little bit longer. And,
you might be right about people, and there's going to be more of those properties coming on. But that's the exact conversation, Brett. The property you just mentioned, you and I were talking about it when I was driving to my closing yesterday, and it was tons of deferred maintenance. People just might not even be able to afford to maintain the home, and those properties are diamonds in the rough. People are going to have to start figuring that out.
Almost anything in a house is fixable.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Well, what's the average? The average age of housing in the United States is getting older year after year. It's like 42 years, I think, is the average.
Right.
Sure.
So,
well, as we should. We're still a young country, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Perspective, right?
Good point.
Go to Europe, it's a little different.
You look at a house that was built in 1560.
Right. Well, I mean,
actually, I know a guy. A guy who lives in. I got to know a guy who lives in England. I think his house was built in like the 1600s.
There you go.
Yeah. But perspective. I mean, we live on the East Coast. Like, we are older houses.
Older houses. You're right. There are other parts. Go
to
to Charlotte, North Carolina, where my brother works. I bet the average. Lives. I bet the average age of homes is much lower there. Everything seems relatively short there.
Sure. All right. Well, anyway, so getting back to some of these specific numbers.
Sorry.
Probably not going to be a surprise because settled properties were so high. All doubled, right? So volume was up 104% as well. Went from 148 million up to 304.
Does that mean the average sales price is pretty flat?
Well, we'll talk about that too.
Oh, I'm getting ahead of the game.
You are. You're jumping the gun.
Keep doing the math.
But that's all right. He is.
I know. I'm
a math guy.
He's an intuitive guy.
I'm a math guy.
All right. So concessions also, obviously, the number went up correspondingly.
Oh,
about
did it?
The same because it's a correlation.
The total amount of concession.
The total number of.
It wasn't
not
per deal.
Per transaction.
No. So 146 to 300, similar, 105% increase. So percentage of concessions pretty flat, 0.59% up, right? So from 38 to 39%. The average concession, though, did increase a little bit, went up about 10% from 79.75 up to 88.09. Now, Michael,
Yes,
the
sir.
list to sold,
Okay.
right? We always do two of these.
Can I guess what it was?
Right. You want to? Sure.
97.3%.
Oh, you're so close. You're so close. Okay, so
It was 0.4%.
If you include the auctions,
Uh-huh.
102 to 101, pretty relatively
I
flat.
don't like
down,
we take
down
those
just a
auctions
hair.
out. They
But
skew the data.
The auctions always skew the data, right? So we remove those. We went from 96.53 to 96.93.
Oh, it's 0.4%.
You were so close, so very close, and up a half a point.
I was
Not
just
quite.
thinking with the increased activity, that may be.
Yeah. So your question about the median sales price. Last 7 days, Baltimore Metro, we went from last week it was $330.
Mm-hmm.
This past week, $350.
Okay.
So
Slight
up
increase.
6%. Yeah. So those are the numbers for this week, folks. The mortgage news and the real estate market news.
Rates are up,
Rates are up.
but people are still buying and selling houses. Remember
They
that.
are. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you, folks. Guys, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, it's why we're all here today.
Yes,
We're going to go into the scoop, and we're going to talk to Randy Cottrell about home inspections. And we're still debating the subtitle. It may be something to do with Sherlock Holmes. It may be something to do with greyhounds. We don't know. But we're coming back to that in just a minute.
Better decide quickly, Brad.
Yes. All right. Talk to you in a second.
Try it.
Welcome back to Be Real, the Maryland Real Estate Podcast. I'm Brad Cox with the Vesta Group of Long and Foster, joined by
Michael Becker of Sierra Pacific Mortgage.
and Michael, our special guest, Randy Cottrell of Blue Crab
How you doing,
Inspections. How are you, Randy?
I am outstanding. Things are great. I'm insanely optimistic about the market and where we're at and where we're going.
You
know what
are
I mean?
insanely optimistic, and your optimism is contagious.
Yeah.
So I have
That's a
enjoyed it.
beautiful thing. So I've known Randy now for a bunch of years, right? We've been serving on the board of directors, and we have a lot of overlap. Board of directors at Greater Baltimore Board of Realtors, the executive committee. Randy is also a policy geek like I am, and is part of our public policy committee. And so his input in all things has been fantastic. But he has quite a bit of expertise in his chosen field, which is home inspections.
Okay.
And that's what we're talking about today, the nitty-gritty details, or as much as we can get into today, about the home inspection process. So, Randy, give us a little background. How long you been doing this? How'd you get into home inspections? Give us a spiel.
Oh, just lucky, I guess. You know? Right. You know? So, yeah, no, I do believe in that.
Yes, you grew up and you said, I want to be a home inspector.
I did. Actually, a lot of my background is in more of like, in more marketing and more sales.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm actually a second generation home inspector. Right? Yeah, the industry is actually starting to get to that. It's crazy, right? I mean, the home inspection industry, I think, it's only 45 to 55 years old.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? You know, as technology makes things more easier for us, they're more complicated, right?
Yeah.
So houses become more complicated.
They sure do.
More systems, more components, and you know, and someone wants to buy a house, but they don't know how to work it, right? Boom, industry, right? There we go, right? You know, I know a guy, right?
Okay.
You know, So my father actually started doing home inspections, kind of as like gig work before we started talking about gig work. Was it? He had a great job. He was the facilities manager for the Baltimore Museum of Art.
Oh,
really? I mean, so anything heating and cooling, again, art. That's his wheelhouse. He also had the maintenance and I think security all. Yeah. So again, that was his kind of side thing, and for a couple years, he was talking to me. He goes, "Hey, I think I got something here," and I came on board, and he stuck around for about a year, kind of helped me, on board with some of the training and development. Just because you can get like it's like me guys talking to you, a realtor or someone in mortgage banking. Just because you're licensed doesn't mean you know what you're doing.
That's
right.
True.
There needs there needs
preach, Randy.
Yeah, there needs to be some training and development along the way. There needs some coaching, some guidance. Right. So and what he was, looking to do, and what it is we're looking to do, is obviously two totally different things. I mean, I'm proud that he doesn't recognize what we've built, right? But I also think that, like I said, there's home inspections, is just a job. Right, what we're building, I said it's a young home inspections, as I'm kind of doing air quotes here on a podcast. Right?
It's okay.
Right, is new.
I can't stop talking with my hands, so don't feel bad.
Right.
It's almost like I'm Italian, but I'm not Italian. But anyway, go ahead.
It's what we're building has been around for hundreds of years, and that's just a service company.
Yeah.
Home inspections is just one of the services that we provide. Mm-hmm. We could list the whole gambit. Actually, I didn't realize how many services we provided the other day until I was looking at it. So so we've been around since 2001. I am insanely impressed and inspired by my team every day.
They're great. I gotta say,
thank you.
Kudos. Because really good professional group of people who really know what they're talking about, and it shows every time. Yes, mm-hmm. Every time I do a work with a new buyer, mm-hmm. and we have a home inspection, and Randy's crew shows up.
You're always
it's
impressed.
Such a great experience.
That's good.
Yeah,
it's great to hear.
Yeah, yeah.
Where do you pull these people from to do home inspections?
It's just like in anything, we're always looking for talent, right? I mean, we're looking for. You don't have to have built houses for the past 20 years, or I'm a master plumber, electrician, or whatever. Right. Do you have anything between your ears? Like, can you think?
Functioning brain.
Right. Do you have a personality? Helpful. Right.
Like, it helps as well.
That's so important.
High emotional IQ.
Yeah, that's so important because to the point of emotional IQ, buyers, especially first-time buyers, never lived on their own in a house before. You start talking through, you go through some of this home inspection stuff with them, and if they're not expecting it, mm-hmm. and they start hearing all these things, and hey, listen, folks, when you pay for a home inspection, you're paying for them to find things. It's their job to find things.
Sure.
And they're going to find things. I don't care what kind of house it is.
Right.
Even new construction, you'll find issues with that home. When the first-time home buyer starts hearing that, mm-hmm. they get overwhelmed, and somebody who has that emotional intelligence, who can relate to them and who can convey, this is serious. This is normal maintenance. Don't get so worked up about this. Right? The door sticking, not a big deal. The crack in the foundation, however.
The last house I bought.
Yeah.
Remember, I did buy it without a contingency for home inspection, but still had one for informational purposes.
Right.
When Mindy, my better half, reviewed it, she was like, "Oh my God!" I said, "Honey, it's okay."
She doesn't see him all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
I said, "This is fine. We're in good shape."
Yeah.
Right? But to that point, somebody never has reviewed a home inspection before can be overwhelmed by the amount of information. And,
it matters what you say, how you say it, when you say it. The tone, the inflection. So
emotional intelligence.
Yeah, that's what we're looking for. And we're looking for talent. We're team members. I mean, you guys just mentioned just the service people. I mean, we've got operations that are answering the phones that are you know what I mean? Like,
Rick.
Rick,
your man Rick.
Oh. Yeah, he's gonna love that he just got name dropped. That's awesome.
Yeah, Rick is the bomb.
Yeah. Well, it's customer experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's from booking the inspection to doing the inspection, and then well past that. I mean, because just like you move into a house, I mean, you're not gonna remember what we talked about 30 days ago, right?
No,
you know what I mean? Like,
right.
you know, you move.
But you are going to remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about this company, the focus on customer experience. That's so important. All right, so Randy, buyer buys a house, get under contract. They're all excited. There's the euphoria. Last week we talked about Sally Field's acceptance speech when she won the Oscar, and how she's misquoted often, but what she said was, right now, you really like me. It's the buyer euphoria. Right now, that buyer really loves the home. Yeah. Then they got to have the home inspection. You know, the blush is going to come off the rose a little bit, but what goes into that whole home inspection process? What's covered typically in a home inspection? And let's get into maybe all the different types as well.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
So a home inspection, honestly, when you break it down to what it truly is, our job in the simplest form is just to provide you with a tool so you're making an educated buying decision.
Yeah.
Right? How you use that tool is entirely up to you. You know, just like you guys shared earlier, no house is perfect. You know, my house isn't perfect. I walk by things every day and I go, all right, we'll get to that, right? But,
and you see it.
Yeah,
it's
I'm
really obvious for you.
cognitively aware of it, right? Yeah, I'm like, when I sell my house, I'm going to have to disclose some things.
Every contractor I know is the same thing.
Yeah,
right?
you know,
check engine lights on, like you said.
Yeah, right. You know, like I'm aware of it, right? But I'll get to it. Like it comes down to dollars in the bank account, or do I just want to go hang out with the kids, or do I want to do whatever, right?
Yeah. Sure.
So you're making a decision. But it's more than that. You know, we always want people to attend the inspection. You know, because there's a lot of home introduction. There's a lot of home 101. In today's world, I'd like to imagine everyone has lived into a house at some point in time. You know, although I am fully aware that there are some people who
have not.
Absolutely. Right? You haven't lived in that house,
right?
Yeah.
Right? You know, so
and every house has its quirks.
100%.
Yeah.
You know, it is a living, breathing thing. It really is. There's an old home inspector analogy where you compare yourself to, go and get an annual maintenance. Or going see your annual physician.
Yeah.
Right? You know, like he's going to say, yeah, you probably need to lose some weight. I mean, you probably need to do some caulking. You probably need to do some sealing. You need to do that general maintenance.
I was looking at my shower this morning and thinking, oh man, I really need to get that recaulked. Yeah.
Right.
Not that I really need to get that recaulked.
Well, you find who, not how, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's kind of the concept. You know, if we're seeing some, the water heater's rusting, well, hey, you need to go get a plumber. You need to go get a professional out there. Yeah. The home inspector's not going to find everything. I'm going to be honest with that. We're going to be there for...
That's a good point. Yeah. It's a visual inspection.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I think, have that impression that, when you do a home inspection, oh, yeah, they're going to... they're going to be able to look behind the walls. They're going to be able to see things. There's somehow superhuman capabilities that the inspector may have.
I can look behind the walls, but I got to cut a nice piece of the drywall out to do that.
And we don't own the house, right? The seller may want to have a conversation about that, right?
Not allowed.
I know the listing agent is going to have something to say.
They're going to have an issue with it, right?
Not allowed to break down the walls. Not allowed to. But that's a good point. It's a visual inspection. The things that you can see. Now, the things that you can see and that your group is attuned to are very different from what the average person will notice.
How so?
So many different things, right? Randy and his group, they'll walk through a house. They'll see, there's these little wavy lines.
I was asking him, by the way.
Sorry.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to shut up. So Randy, how so?
It was a good lead in, and he just stepped on it. He just stepped on the lead. So
that's all right.
Obviously, there is a standard. We all live in the great state of Maryland. That Maryland's great, obviously, because we are a licensed state.
Okay.
Some other states in and around us, they just have some certifications or just some.
They can inspect your home.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
So again, it's still a younger.
It's a relatively new industry. Yeah.
So as licensing comes, mortgage banking was only 15 years, 10, 15 years? When
2007 is when I got licensed in Maryland. That was prior to the
mortgage banking been around as an industry, right?
And Maryland was one of the first states because the national license system came after that. So.
Yeah. So they're still figuring things out with, and there's a list of guidelines. So, there's a minimum SOP, right? Hey, you have to look at this, you have to look at that. Obviously, on the exterior of the house, we've got to look at the roofing systems, gutters, downspouts, things like that, grading, siding. We can kind of get, but for the most part, on the outside of the house, we're fighting Mother Nature. Yeah. Are we keeping wind, water, time,
outside.
Right. And that can be vegetation, and that could also be pests.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously inside we're looking at, electrical, plumbing, structure, heating, cooling, we're testing windows, outlets, doors, things like that.
Checking the appliances.
Yeah, 100%. If we can get at it and we can test it or we can put eyes on it, we want to do that.
Shaking the toilets. Everybody looks at me funny when I walk into a house, like we show a house.
Right.
Buyers are, kind of
shaking a toilet.
Dude, all right. So buyers are kind of oohing and ahhing over what the house could be, and I'm ignoring all of that for a while until I've checked out the stuff I want to check. I'm not in any way a home inspector, but I'll walk through because I want them to be aware maybe of, there maybe could be some issues that are obvious that I can pick up on that doesn't in no way takes the place of a home inspection. But I'll walk into the bathroom and straddle the toilet and rock back and forth and see if the toilet rocks with me.
No, that's not good if it is.
And if it does, that's a little bit, it's a minor issue, but it's still an issue, right? So, we bring to their attention some of the obvious things before we even write the offer, just so that they're aware.
Sure. Well, that's what a seasoned agent should be doing.
Yeah.
Because that just leans into the home inspection. Like, again, not everything's going to be, and a home inspection is not a guarantee.
Right.
Like we're there 2.5, 3.5 out, depending on the size and condition of the house, right?
Right. Sometimes 4.5.
Yeah, right. Again, look, well, if they're bigger houses, obviously we'll send a whole team, so it's, but a lot of it's just perspective and understanding, that, again, not every house is perfect. Like you said, even in new construction, but it's like, what are you willing to accept?
Right.
I don't know if your brother's best friend from college is now a master electrician.
So you're not to a break and you don't care.
Yeah, right? You're not worried about anything electrical thing.
And to your point, I had a client once, brand new house, new construction, great builder.
Yeah.
We did the home inspection. On the main level of the house, every single outlet was reverse polarity. Every single one.
Right.
And now, is it the end of the world? No. That's not a major problem to resolve, but it's still... It's something you want to be aware of.
Some subcontractor.
And everybody thinks, I don't need a home inspection because it's a brand new home. Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Do you know all the subcontractors that went in there and the work that they did? Right?
Well, and theoretically, you would think, there's a county inspector who signed off on the work that's done, but are they really looking at every little?
I think they're not. Something in to check reverse polarity.
Yeah. Well,
they obviously got the use and occupancy cert.
They did, yeah. But here's the thing: those inspectors, county inspectors, just like anybody else, there's a limited amount of resources. They can only do so much, and so not everything. I think there are things.
So I have a question that occurred to me.
Yeah.
During a home inspection, have you ever come across something so blatantly tried to be hidden from you? You know what I mean? Like they know the seller or the owner or maybe the listing agents, they know something's wrong with it and they're trying to hide it from you.
Yeah.
Because they don't want it coming up because they don't, they're under contract, they're happy.
Right.
It's human nature.
Yeah.
To do that.
Well, it shouldn't be human nature. And Maryland's a disclosure state, dude. Right. We go out of our way in the contract to make it clear that you need to disclose latent
something's
defects,
wrong,
right? And there are still sellers sometimes who ignore that.
We're going to give you the opportunity to do the right thing here, right? But anytime money's involved,
absolutely,
people's integrity is in question all of a sudden. Or I don't want to say that as negative, but like. The devil pops up on the shoulder and kind of talks to you for a second.
So
right?
in an imperfect world, checks and balances are important.
1,000%.
Yeah, that's why we have the home inspection.
Yeah,
right.
1,000%.
Okay. So you talked a lot about what's covered in the typical home inspection. There's also some things you can't check. Let's talk about that.
Kind of like we were talking about earlier. Obviously, we can't see through a wall.
Right.
But actually, I was looking at
sorta.
Well, we can actually. I was looking at we use Slack as our internal communication.
Yeah.
And one of our guys, Scott, one of our team members, he was on a house and he pulled out the thermal imaging gun.
Nice.
Right, and he was underneath the tub. He found the leak. Like you're looking at paint, right? Like you'd mentioned, sometimes people like.
Just paint right over that.
Yeah,
Kills has been used by many a homeowner to hide a water leak.
We just sent me some of those photos, so it kind of alludes in. Yeah, sometimes people. I don't want to say that their integrity is in question, but it's kind of funny. Like there was never a problem. Now all of a sudden the home inspector touched it, and now that it's starting to leak, or there's a problem, or so.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we talked about the standard home inspection.
Right.
There's some other kinds of inspections that we, in general, run into. The kind that, all right, so there's 3 basic ones that I always tell clients, you should get these 3 done no matter what, that in this area. Yeah. Structural and mechanical home inspection, that's the main one that Randy just talked about. The wood destroying insect inspection, that, everybody calls it the termite inspection, but it's other types of carpenter bees, carpenter ants, all those kind, right? Yeah, so any of those. And then the last one is radon, and radon hit or miss in this area, but there are parts of this area that have higher concentrations of radon. For those who don't know what radon is, colorless, odorless gas, and has been linked in higher concentrations to certain forms of cancer. The EPA has set a mediation guideline that if the property exceeds 4 picocuries per liter on the radon measurement, it's 48-hour typically or more average, that should be a remediated issue. And that's not an overwhelmingly difficult thing to deal with. You put a remediation system in there, creates negative air pressure. There's a fan, sucks the air out, pumps it up above the ridge line, the roof line of the house, and, Bob's your uncle.
Yeah. So obviously,
that was very British. I don't know why I said Bob's your uncle, but anyway.
I mean, no, but that's what it is. I mean, obviously, there's a potential harmful gas, right? Found, and we just suck it out, put a big fan on it. It's not that complicated, right? Yeah. But it's an easy problem to fix. Yeah. But you're right. I mean, it's a carcinogen, and we don't talk about it enough, but it becomes genetics. Like, it might affect me and not you. Yeah. Right. And then it's through long periods of exposure, so it's kind of hard to put down on it.
Right. And there's swaths in Maryland that typically have higher concentration.
Oh,
yeah. So
that's interesting.
Not every home. So I don't want to make an overgeneralization, but I'll say there are certain jurisdictions in the state where they require the seller to pay for a radon inspection before the house can be sold, because the concentrations are typically higher in that area. So around Moco, all the way up through a lot of Carroll County. Not all of it, but some parts. I'll say this. I had the listing on this house. The buyer did a radon inspection. Now, I said 4 picocuries per liter is the remediation standard. We did the test. The buyer's agent calls me. She says, yeah, it's 147.
Yeah.
The guy that did the home inspection said it's the largest number I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Now I've heard others since then that have been even higher than that. But holy cow, right? So luckily we that was worked out. We put a remediation system and everything.
To kind of answer your question, because we could talk hours on that, but there's a lot of different. So again, circle it back to what it is that you're hiring us to do.
Great point.
Right? You're hiring us to educate you. Right, to introduce you to your new. You buy the house, you make it your home, right? So you're bringing us in to introduce you to about the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever, right? We don't really have an opinion. We're not living there, and we're not paying your mortgage, so we really don't get a vote, right, on what it is that you accept. Right. If the house is, again, you're in the county. Maybe it makes sense to get a well yield, get a septic inspection. These are potential high dollar costs, if
could
need repairs.
Significantly high.
Right, exactly. Again, congratulations. We live on the East Coast, right? We have amazing old houses.
Right.
With that, right, there's always a but.
But over time, things can change. They may have been built correctly.
Well, so speaking of old, another inspection that we run into a lot is, especially in the Baltimore City, sewer line scope.
Yeah. Okay.
A lot of people ignore that, but I'll tell you, anybody who buys in Baltimore City, you should have a sewer line scope inspection. Sure. And it's because of the aging infrastructure. To your point, right? We live in some older communities.
Sure.
And that infrastructure starts to degrade over time. You can't just assume, I'm buying a house, everything must be fine. Now, that sewer line scope inspection, Randy, what's that cover?
You ever want to see down a poop pipe, right? We'll see. We'll give you a whole video on it. But, you can see all kinds of stuff with it. Again, technology is freaking awesome right now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just you can use a camera, go through the clean out, and you can see root intrusion. You can see where there might be a belly, where there's gravity's a thing, so things might settle and it's holding water.
Yeah.
Or again, there's cracking or shifting or whatever. So again, once you purchase the house, you own it. Right.
Yeah.
And during that too, and again, there's volume, there's math, right? We can only run as much water down that drain during that home inspection as we possibly can.
Yeah.
Right. So if there's a challenge that's 75 feet out on that drain line, well, it's got to go 75 feet, then back up another 75 feet.
Right.
Right before. Right.
Before you start to right.
So it can be very challenging. That won't come up. That was your previous question. What could be a challenge that wouldn't come up during a normal home inspection? Yeah. That's one of them.
Sure.
Right. So again, there's same thing for a chimney inspection.
That one because I'll tell you, I love what Randy's done. I got to say, with the chimney inspections, because there's a lot of chimney inspectors out there. I'm going to talk about something that just irks me about the industry a little bit.
Do it.
There are a lot of not Randy's companies, not the companies he's affiliated with, because I love how they're doing it. But there are a lot of companies out there who will write the report and give you a quote. We're going to fix it for you. And it's every incentive for them to find something that may or may not even exist. We've seen that happen. Yeah. So what I love with Randy's group that he's affiliated with is they have said to their inspectors, we're inspectors. Right, we're not writing quotes. Now, it doesn't prevent someone from asking for a quote once that's done, but they're not doing it. And I love that separation. So kudos, Randy, to you guys for how you're handling that. You just need that objectivity.
Sure.
Agreed. You need it.
Sure. Well, right. Well, again, it's our job is to provide information and knowledge, and it's the client's job to make a choice with that information.
Yeah.
We go back to that emotional thing, right, about buying a house, but it's not. It's a business decision.
It's an emotional business decision, but it is a business decision.
I don't want to remove emotion from it because, we are there, from the time we book the job until they sell that house.
Yeah.
Right. We tell them, look, if you have questions or you move in and you have some challenges, we want to know about it. We want to try to help in any possible way we can.
Right.
Right. So again, we want your future business too. It's like I'm not there looking for work. I need you to call me when you move again, right?
Right.
I need you to care about me in a couple more years too, right?
Yeah. Good point.
So there's all kinds of services. It really is going to determine about the house that you're purchasing.
Yeah.
I would encourage you to obviously talk to home inspectors.
Yeah.
Or home service companies. I really think it matters. Like there is a huge distinction between that. Invite me back. I'll get on my soapbox.
Okay. You will.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But have a conversation. And get to know. Right. Yeah.
Right.
Or talk to your realtor and say, hey, what are your thoughts? Right. That's what they're there for.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we talked about it a little bit before, but I just want to make it clear, right?
Sure.
Buyers coming along on the home inspection.
Yeah.
Welcome.
1,000%. We want you there.
Yeah.
You're going to get a report after the fact. And
it's detailed. It's a very detailed
there's
report.
photos, and we're going to say, hey, here's what we're looking at, and there's errors.
How many pages is a typical home inspection?
It depends on the house
size
and what's
and condition.
going on. Yeah, but
I would like to see 25 to 30.
Okay.
If you're starting to see more than that, there's some challenges. Because what's your average house? 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths.
Right.
Yeah.
So if there's that many issues with it, it might not be.
Right. There's additional photos.
That's good information. I think listeners would like to know.
Yeah,
again, size and condition is really kind of
makes sense.
No, but it also depends on what those little things are going to be, right? Because Randy's group, like I said, they're going to find a lot.
I know.
Right? So a lot may be a lot of minor maintenance-y type things. That still lengthens the report.
But yes, but what lengthens the report in my mind would be pictures, and the more pictures you have to take, the worse it might be.
That's part of the issue. They do a great job of separating the items in the report.
Okay.
So there's blue, which is your basic maintenance-y stuff.
Right.
And then there's the red.
Okay,
And
you want a lot of red.
You don't want a lot of red.
Right.
If you have a lot of blue, you can deal with that. You get a lot of red, you got some problems.
So go back to our first time home buyer. Like close your eyes, picture our first. That is our client, right? And if they're getting this report and it's in red and defective, right? No, you want to see
because you want them to be successful homeowners, and if they're buying into a house that has tons of deferred maintenance,
Right. Yeah.
A lot of people. In a previous conversation, Brad, I gave you a number. What do I like people to save to maintain a home?
About 1% of the price of the home
per year. You should have that saved. You're probably not going to spend that every year, but there's going to be years you might have to pay 2%. You got a new roof, you got a new HVAC. If you're putting that away, if you're not saving anything for maintenance on a house, you're going to run into a lot of trouble.
Yeah, it's going to make.
It's not bad advice, like it's because things work until they don't, right? And that's going back to what we were talking about earlier with the home inspection. A home inspection stops
at the time
the inspector walks out that door,
right?
And you move in 30 days later, like
something,
right? Or someone had been living there, or believe it or not, the way that I might live in a house is different than the way that you guys would live in a house.
Absolutely.
So one of the breaks at my house, I have a cracked tank on my toilet.
Yeah.
The day before, I didn't discover it until there was water on the floor.
Right.
You don't look at the back of your tank. Usually, the cover of the seat is up.
Right.
That was I would not have been able to unless you have dogs in the house and you put them down.
Right.
So you
Yes,
drinking out of the
exactly.
toilet. But that's
out.
most of the time. I'm not talking about the seat. The
Right,
toilet
right,
cover.
right,
That's
right.
up. That block, the crack, and I would have never picked it up were it not for the leaking water. And one day it didn't leak.
And the next day it did.
Right.
And it's good point to Randy.
So it's not necessarily a guarantee. It's just an opportunity to understand what it is that you are purchasing.
And it's a snapshot in time.
So we want the clients there. We want
buyers.
All right, you want the clients there.
Yeah.
How about the buyer's dad?
Especially if he's in construction or home improvement, you definitely want him.
Yeah, no, you actually do. You do.
Okay.
Like, I mean, I'm going to
Good for you.
Because
I'm just thinking because time is money.
Yes.
And he may slow the inspection down.
He can slow.
He has the potential to do so if you allow it.
All right.
Yeah.
Right.
Good point. And that's why you hire
a professional.
With emotional intelligence.
Right. There you go. Someone who knows how to understand and I don't want to because go back to that client, right? They don't know me.
Yeah.
They don't know what I know, how I know it. They were referred to us by one of our referral partners.
Yep.
They found us online and said, "Wow, this is the highest rated company here, right? Thousands of 5-star reviews."
But there still has to be trust built.
Just quoting that right there. Like they found it, like just putting it.
Googling it.
Right. Yeah. And they find us, right? But they don't necessarily know. So we've got to be able to earn that trust, rapport right away. And if they trust their dad more than us, or their uncle, or whatever bring that person who brings value to you. Like if they're, and we're gonna find out, because if that person if dad's an electrician, hey dad, let's go look at the panel together right now.
Sure.
And once we build that rapport, and they go, okay, Blue Crab knows what's what and understands electric panel. Now all of a sudden we start talking about the heating system. We've earned that credibility.
Right.
Bring someone with value. I love my kids, but my kids would bring zero value to a home inspection, right? And if anything, they're going to devalue the experience because they're going to distract me.
Well, that's true.
Right.
I will say that. Yeah. So that's great advice for buyers. Try not to bring the kids along. It's a challenge. This is your opportunity, as Randy said earlier, to learn a lot about the house. Don't bring the kids along. All right. So Randy, how long are they typically going to be there? We talked about it a little bit before, but I just want to make it clear what they can normally expect.
Sure.
And I think it's going to depend on what inspections are ordered, has all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
And the size of the home, and sure. But what do you typically run into?
So you have to take those things into account because of work schedules. Again, plugging Blue Crab here. I mean, we work 7 days a week.
Yeah.
We need to be available when the client's available. So hopefully we can line that up.
Yeah.
Right. But if you can only make, the last 30 minutes, well, we're going to do a recap with you, right? But I would say typical is about 2.5 to 3.5. Really depends on the condition of the house. And
if there's to your point earlier, if there's a lot of deferred maintenance, you're going to be in there for a little bit longer because a lot more is going to be found.
Yeah.
Now, what I love about Randy's group and their approach, I hope when he leaves here, his head fits through the door because well,
there's a reason you use him, Brad.
There is a reason, yes. But the way they do their inspections, they're going through, and this is a huge time saver. They're going through and they're making their notes in their device as they go along. They're taking photos as they go along. That's why they're able to turn a report around so quickly.
Makes sense.
And it makes a huge difference, especially in these really competitive markets when you got to compete and get an offer together quickly and you got to have your home
inspections done quickly. Well, not only that, a lot of times,
quickly, and
from my standpoint, from the lending standpoint,
you got to order the appraisal and you don't want to do it.
I often wait for the results or a feeling from the home inspection before an appraisal is ordered. If there's a deal breaker, I do not want to waste the client's money on an appraisal.
Yeah.
And if you have a contract, these days, a lot of times you win a contract with a 3-week turnaround or something like that. So
time is leverage, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, we have a 48-hour inspection guarantee.
That's
if you need to, because again, what does the client need? They need good service when they need it, and they needed it yesterday, right? So that way they can get the report, because especially if they're going to be competitive in the market, right? Then they have time to process the information, ask questions, right, and make an educated buying decision.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about what the report actually looks like then, because we talked about, them asking questions and getting the information, but at the end, after they're separated from that inspector, and that, like I said, that's a great opportunity to learn a lot, ask a ton of questions, right? That's beautiful, time well spent on the buyer's part. Don't skip it.
Yeah.
They get this report. What's it look like? We talked a little bit about the red and the blue. Just give us the details.
Well, it's going to have a lot more information in it than what the buyers needs. Truth be told, because it's gonna have a lot of information. Hey, this where this the front hose bib shut off is. They don't necessarily need that information to make that buying decision at that point in time.
Right.
Although
it's helpful to have.
Well, I'm not. Hey, we're doing it because it brings value. If it didn't bring value, we would probably have stopped doing it.
Right.
It's gonna have a lot of that information. And we talked earlier about photos and things like that. But we have to remind ourselves that those photos are just a relative sample.
Yeah.
Like if we talked about, something that needs caulking, exterior or whatever, right?
Yeah.
We're, if we take a photo of every area that might need, like now we went from that 20 to 25, now we're 60 pages. Right. So it becomes a little bit of a challenge sometimes. We put in there some general statements where we're saying, hey, we're noticing a challenge and you should have a qualified contractor who specializes in this. Right. Come and take a look at it.
And that's great service that they provide. They'll tell you if there's an issue with the panel. They'll say in the report, we recommend having a licensed electrician come out to evaluate and provide a quote for repairs.
Yeah. But to be fair to the report, and I love how you are commenting on how detailed we are. However, all things through balance, right? Yin yang. There's always a dichotomy of things. A home inspection, we're not there, talking about cosmetics. We don't care about nail pops. We don't care about stains on the carpet.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
that's obvious. Anybody who's buying a house can pick those things out.
Yeah.
Is it?
Well,
is it? You're getting
they move in. You're gonna get a call that because how come you didn't point out these nail pops?
Yeah. Right.
Well, maybe when your movers moved in, and bag things around, they popped out.
Yeah, temperatures changed, pressures changed, the condition of the house changed, or maybe the photo that was, or the big picture that was hanging on the wall. Well, that's
covered that.
Right. I had nail pops occur when I was rehabbing a bathroom and pulling the tub out. It took so much banging.
Yeah, sure.
That happened.
You're gonna paint the room anyway. You know what I mean? Like, whatever.
I was like, it's no big deal. I can fix that.
So cosmetics and aesthetics aren't gonna make the report. Right. Safety, mechanical, and here's the crazy thing. Well,
things like that.
This is something that people don't necessarily understand either. Is it's not a code inspection, right? We live on the East Coast. Like a house that was built 100 years ago you can't compare that to a house that was built today.
Right.
It's not the same thing, and the seller's not going to be able to bring it up to the code, or they wouldn't be able to afford to sell the house, right? So, is the system functioning as it was installed as it was intended? Does it work? Yes, no.
All right. Although, to your point, if you're looking at some of those really, really old houses,
The wiring.
you get into knob and tube wiring, I would run like the wind.
Anything can be fixed.
Unless the seller's willing to fix all that, or give a nice credit.
Or you're getting a discount on the price based on your price.
Well, if you can can get insurance.
Yeah.
Because some insurance companies won't even do that, right? Won't
insure knob and tube properly.
And that's something else. Again, it's the home inspection's not. We're not going to know that. You know what I mean? So we're just going to say, hey, if we see, we're going to put it in the report.
This is the type of wiring we see.
Right. Yeah. And then you do with that information you will.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, listen, great information. When we come back, we're going to get into a lot more detail and round it out with some inspections that you might not think you might want to have.
Okay.
So come back in just a minute.
Try it.
Welcome back to Be Real, the Maryland Real Estate Podcast. I'm Brad Cox with the Vesta Group of Long & Foster, and sitting across from me is the amazing...
I was wondering what adjective.
Does it say that on your business card?
I got to throw something in there, yeah.
Well, I tend to do that to you. So
you do.
Turn around is fair play. I am Michael Becker of Sierra Pacific Mortgage.
And Michael, our guest today... is Mr. Randy Cottrell from Blue Crab Inspections. Randy, thanks again for being with us. So far, we've gotten into some really great information, and you've been sharing some truth bombs that we really appreciate. So thank you for that. First question, coming back, some of the issues. We talked about the red in the report, the doom and gloom. Right. But they're the defects that are going on. Can a home inspector clarify how serious some of those things, like would a home inspector ever say run away?
Sure. No, they shouldn't, because again, we don't know your situation.
Right.
This might be an amazing opportunity for you. I mean, we're just going to tell you the roof is leaking, or you know what I mean?
What if it's so bad that you may want to have a structural engineer come in?
Well, yes.
You probably would put that in the report.
Yes, right. Yeah. But we're usually not going to jump to that conclusion either. We're going to say, okay, hey, we're seeing a crack.
Right.
All right, mental note. Or hey, these windows are racking. They're not going up and down. Like something has clearly shifted. Something is doing something it's not supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
But 1 + 1 typically equals 2.
It's the preponderance of that kind of evidence that I think leads you to those conclusions too, right? I although there are some times when it's really obvious. Like we walked into a house one time, and the home inspector went up in the attic, and they said, well, they've sawed out all those trusses.
With the webbing,
And so now the roof is not even remotely supported like it should be.
Yeah.
Any really good amount of snow, now lately that's not been an issue here, but hey, it might. Any good amount of snow, and this could maybe cave in. Yeah, so... Right. There's some obvious ones where you've got to have a structural engineer come out and evaluate this. But to your point.
But we've got to put the the decorations somewhere in the luggage, right? Like that's
that's
important.
Make it easier so we can put that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, what does the architect and the engineer know?
Right. All right. So we talked a little bit before in the first half, but are they going to give us quotes?
It can be done. Because we were talking earlier. Obviously, we want to give you knowledge, and we want to give it to you as quickly as we possibly can.
Yeah.
One of the services we do offer is a repair pricer tool. So we can upload the report. And some of that's AI, but then a human does touch it.
Yeah.
So we can kind of give you some ranges. Obviously there is some challenges. With supply chains, right?
Sure,
but we'll get you on a good range. So,
what's great about that is that it gives, especially somebody like a first-time buyer who's never purchased a home before, has never had a lot of work done on a home before. You see a problem. I've seen this happen thousands of times, where it's a $200 repair that automatically gets inflated in the buyer's mind. to an $800 repair.
We fear what we don't know. Okay, well, what does it actually mean?
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
So we can actually make a decision on it, know? So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right. So what are some of the kind of serious issues? Like what things what things really stand out?
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned obviously, a structural concern. Like we go in the attic and we're seeing, like some structural challenges that, you're in the attic or you're seeing some water coming through the sheathing. Like those can be some bigger challenges.
Yeah.
The heating system isn't working, right? Like
That's
these are,
biggie.
yeah, like the water heater's leaking, right? We walk in the basement, you can just see black growth on the wall. Like these are environmental challenges.
That brings up a thought.
Yeah.
So seasonally,
yes,
is it tougher to test certain items? For example,
yes.
How hard is it to test air conditioning
You
in the
test.
winter?
You can't test it.
You can't.
Right? If it's below, what is it, 60 degrees?
Yeah.
Right.
So
if it's below 60 degrees outside, you can't test the AC.
A home inspection is a snapshot in time.
Like
so there's a lot of, and you know what? Right, you've been, and you guys are great hosts. And you guys asked me a lot of questions. So let me ask you one real quick.
Yeah.
I there's a couple school of thoughts, but from a realtor's perspective, what do you think the best scenario would be to have a home inspection? Because some realtors are like, oh, home inspection, great day is a raining day, because we're not going to notice if the roof is leaking and it's dry.
That's a great question.
Great
Right?
question. I always say to buyers, if you can get a home inspection on the day that it's pouring down rain, bonus for you,
Right.
because then you're going to be able to tell. Oh, we're getting some moisture down here.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
Oh,
Yeah.
I had one client. We walked in. There's literally water streaming out of the foundation wall in the basement.
Yeah.
Streaming out. Not trickling down the
I
wall.
think that would be marked red.
It was kind of a big red. Now, all right. But to that point, foundation walls, you see cracks in foundation walls all the time.
Yes.
Doesn't necessarily mean, oh my gosh,
horizontal
the
or
house is
vertical
going to
can
fall
be
down.
Correct.
Right. So what's the bad ones? The bad kind of cracks.
Again, we care about load and structure. We want something vertical. Like if it starts to bow inward, right? Obviously,
That's bad.
Right, yeah, that's no bueno, right?
Well, I have addition in my house, right? And
Yeah.
where it was put on, you can see it settled a little bit, and there's a vertical crack, and the outside, but it's just the covered, the cement that they poured over top of it.
Right.
And I think it's just from settling.
And that's and that's the thing, So and that's perfectly acceptable, right?
You still want to seal it up. You don't want water getting in there, but
Right,
It's
it was
not into the-
It's not like a foundational house is going to fall down.
Right. It would be something, maybe we would note that in the report. Hey, we would note that, the cracking or shifting or something like that. But you being the seller, you could say, hey, this shifted. It hasn't done anything in 10 years. When did you put the addition on?
God, it was before I moved in.
Right.
Yeah,
so
And I've been there 11 years, so
Yeah. So if it hasn't changed,
it's always been there.
yeah.
since I've been
If
there.
it hasn't changed,
yeah.
yeah.
And they're, like you said, they're going to paint with it, so.
Yeah, great point. Great point. All right, so let me ask you. We talked a little bit about these serious. What's the most serious thing you guys have ever run into?
We see some crazy things. Most people just want to see pictures of snakes and spiders that we see in houses, right? We see
Snakes? Oh my God.
Right, but to me, like the missing webbing from a structural component, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that is pretty big.
But you get to the point stuff where you just, I don't know, like you become broken, like you're just numb to it. Like you open
I'd like to say I'm surprised, but
I've seen, like I'm used to, okay, I open an attic hatch, there's a bucket. Well, I know why that bucket's there. Okay, right,
Yeah.
That's a good thing, right? We get to a point where we're just reporting on the house's condition, and you're able to take that emotional out of it.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're like, you're not saying, oh my God, I can't believe this, because you've seen it before.
Right.
Take the emotion out of it, put it in the report.
right.
Get the people who need that information can make the decision what to do with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
because it might, and that's where it becomes a loaded question. Is that it might be big to me and not you, right? Like I don't know.
I don't
right?
care.
Well,
Yeah.
well, right. So to Randy's point earlier, right? He doesn't know if your uncle is maybe a master electrician, right?
Yeah.
But so somebody walks in and they see a panel, and it's there's certain panels. I'm not going to name the manufacturers on the air, but there are certain panel manufacturers that have been linked to, hey, there's lawsuits, there's fires that have happened from some of these panels, And
then
if
that
panel,
closet where the panel in has tons of stuff in it.
Yeah. So if that panel's there, hey,
Right.
You might want to have a panel upgrade. Well, to some buyers, that may be, holy cow, that's overwhelming. I don't feel safe in this house. I can't do it. And then to somebody else, they may feel, we'll get the panel replaced.
Yeah.
No big deal.
Let's get a discount for it. And
If you've seen it, I mean, again, if it could happen, we've probably seen it. You know what I mean? We've walked into houses where, the radiator's busted and we're strucking through water, and you know what I mean? Like,
really, somebody would get. It's okay to have the inspection.
Well, we did term it. We were like, this is weird. We'll come back.
Well, so in general, in this industry.
Yeah.
Now, Michael, you see it a little less because you're not walking into these houses all the time.
Yeah. I'm lucky to be able to see a home after it's closed.
Right.
Yeah, you get the appraisal.
Right. I get the appraisal, but appraisals.
Yeah.
Right. But when we're walking in, we're showing, and when they're walking in and they're doing the home inspection, sometimes there's weird stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like we walk in, you see bongs all over. Now, that used to be a bigger issue. Nowadays, it's probably not as big a deal, but you see bongs all over the place.
Yeah, I can imagine
I've seen certain, let's call them toys,
Mm-hmm.
laying out. I've walked in and had people sleeping, disrobed, right as we're doing the home inspection for home inspection or showing or whatever.
Investment properties,
but you run in and people live their lives, and you're catching them at a moment in time. And
we've talked or shown pictures of listings that we couldn't believe, and same thing with an appraisal. I'm shocked at how people leave their homes when an appraiser's coming in. You mentioned that in a previous podcast that a filthy home shouldn't affect the value of it, but he's only human.
Yeah. Now you mentioned earlier the a snake or a spider or whatever.
Yeah.
There, do you remember? I can't even remember a couple of years ago. Wasn't there there was a snake house, like they had 8,000 snakes or something in this house, and
we just had that. It was in there was it was an estate sale where the husband passed and the wife had 30 cats called barks, and it was 300 cats.
Oh my God. Whoa!
They were inside the walls.
Yeah.
So the agent actually reached out to us. She goes, "Here's the deal. Are you guys even willing to do this?" Right. And we've got procedures in place, with the PPE, with respirator, because if you smell it, you know what you're breathing in, the ammonia, and so that's most recent. That was pretty bad.
Yeah. Okay, nasty.
So inspector made a little extra on that job.
I hope. Yeah, good that you take care of your people. Yeah. All right, so let's talk about something a little different. How sometimes it may not be as obvious that you might want to have an inspection, but there's some times when it's not a buyer doing the home inspection.
Sure,
it's a seller. I personally believe, as we've talked about earlier in the show, Maryland is a disclosure state. Mm-hmm. I personally am in the camp. It's a great idea for a seller to have a home inspection. Now, there are other camps that believe, no, if you have it in a report, you've got to disclose it. Well, okay, so disclose it up front.
Right.
Hand them the inspection report that you had. And you appear, as rightly you should, as someone who is, look, I'm not trying to hide anything from you. Here's everything we know.
I'm acting in good faith.
I'm acting in good faith.
Sure.
I think that adds to the negotiation.
Yeah.
So do you see, is that a trend that's changing?
I'm not sure. I would like to say yes to that.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I sit in the same camp as you. There are really some amazing technical home inspectors in this market, like insanely smart. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying every home inspector is equal, not by any means, because we all know that's not the truth.
Right,
however, but if one's gonna, if it's something that's so blatantly obvious, one's gonna find it. They all should find it. So why not get ahead of the challenge?
Right.
Right. So Yeah, I mean, to
right,
me,
because it is an opinion, kind of like an appraisal.
Right.
It is an opinion for some things.
Right.
And some people may assign more weight on certain things as others based on their perspective.
From my perspective, it would be a cost-benefit analysis, the cost of it and the potential benefit of having stuff to get ahead of that Randy just mentioned.
Right.
And it probably has the potential for a great benefit.
You're a math guy. Keep doing the math.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, get it, because if you wait until it's figured out by the buyer's inspector, you may be talking about a seller concession that's going to cost 5 times what you could have fixed ahead of
Again, to that point, anything that you do during not that I'm advocating people don't use licensed contract. You should use a licensed contractor when you get work done on your house. But there are certain things that homeowners do all the time, right?
Sure.
But you can't do that if it's part of the home inspection process.
Right.
That all has to be done by a licensed contractor. It's part of the deal. Right. And it states it in the contract, work must be done by a licensed contractor. So, to your point, there are certain things that you can tick off over the years, hey, great idea.
Yeah. We talked about earlier on how this industry has started and evolved and is continuing to evolve. I honestly, annual home maintenance checkups are going to be a thing.
Yeah,
they have to be a thing because again, people need to budget, and if you're not knowing what you're doing or how your house even working, you need someone in there, talking to you about it.
And there are things that the average homeowner may not necessarily pick up on, but that a home inspector or a home services company can give you that perspective on.
Because they're the professional. It's what they do, right? Like you go to the realtor because that's what they do.
Right.
Yeah. No, you hire the expert. I don't know. That's just maybe how we're starting to evolve a little bit.
Well, I think it's a great service. And so not just when you're selling your home, even just on a regular basis, at least every couple of years, you should have a home inspector or home services company come in and evaluate things just so you have an idea of what's going on. Right? Whether you choose to act on it at that moment, like, we talked about a little earlier. Yeah, there's certain things that you see and you're like, yep, I know.
How many people know the age of their water heater?
I do.
Yeah, you're in the business.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Don't.
Yeah.
Right.
If you wait till that fails,
Yeah.
how expensive can that be?
When's the best day to replace a water heater?
Before it fails.
Yeah.
There you go.
Right. Exactly. You know what I mean? Because
there's collateral damage when it fails.
Right? A day earlier, a day late. You know?
Yeah.
So, where you have to deal with that challenge when it's right in front of you.
Well, and that goes to system like lifespan expectancy, right? There are certain things that you have an idea of how long it should last.
Right.
Sure.
When you're getting to that point, hey, time to maybe call in somebody to take a look at that.
Yeah.
HVAC systems, somewhere between 15, 20 years, that's the life expectancy. What a water heater's like? 10, 12?
The house
maybe?
I'm in right now, I have replaced the water heater twice. The first one went up in 12 years. The second one, 6.5.
Holy cow.
Yeah,
Not what you expect.
The warranty was over in 6.
Oh,
right? They knocked that down. I'll tell you that right now.
Made in China, was it?
Right, but I think
they had an actuary.
Well, to kind of answer your question, I think that the industry could be evolving as we start to leverage technology and as people, because then it just becomes data. And then we can just save that data to the house.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's easier to get permits right now and find out who touched the house, who did what. So right now, I mean, I would encourage any seller to kind of get ahead of some things.
Yeah.
Even if it's not just to get a full report, where we will do a walk and talk consultation.
It's a great idea.
Have the inspector come in. Just, you're just paying for their time and their knowledge, and we can educate you about the house that you've been living in for the past couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, fantastic. Well, Randy, I got to say, this has been great. It's been great having you here to speak to our listeners. They'll probably listen to you much more than they'll listen to us. So it's nice to spice things up a little bit.
Absolutely.
All right, so Randy, appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Randy.
Thank you so much. If somebody needs a home inspection, what's the best way for them to reach you?
I mean, I think in today's world, you have to be everywhere. So social media, Blue Crab Inspections. We're on Facebook, and obviously we're on the gram.
Yeah.
And obviously our website, bluecrabinspections.com. Phone call, obviously 410-679-1401 is our office. We have people answering the phones all the time, and and website. Obviously, you can order any and all of your inspections online.
Yeah, that's been super helpful for us.
Yeah, well, it goes to the point like you're showing a house at 8-9 o'clock at night. You write an offer. You can jump on the website at 11-12 o'clock at night and schedule an inspection for 2 days later.
I often do that to find out. Hey, can we get these inspections done in the time frame that we're promising before we even write the offer?
Yeah. 70% of our jobs are booked online.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's great.
It's easier.
It's super tool. Yeah,
sure.
Absolutely. Dude,
awesome.
Well, thank you. Really appreciate you being here. All right, so, folks, when we come back, it's the unreal and the spotlight. We'll be back in a minute.
Try me.
And we're back to Be Real, the Maryland Real Estate Podcast. I'm Brad Koch with the Vesta Group of Long & Foster. Sitting across from me.
Yes, it's Michael Becker of Sierra Pacific Mortgage. How you doing, Brad?
Doing great.
Let's wrap up this week's show. We're going to talk a little bit about the unreal.
We had
several ideas as to what to talk about, but social media.
We're going to talk about a couple
We'll
of
get
things.
to them, but social media had me thinking, and it was a bunch of bad information, or I think they may have been ads, and it was about a HELOC.
Yeah, folks, if you're getting your real estate advice from TikTok, be careful who you're listening. Now, there's
some great people out there with wonderful
people,
Absolutely.
right? Watch Glenda Baker. She's fun. I love her, and she provides great information. There's a couple of great resources out there, but there's also a bunch of garbage. And Michael's got a great example.
Well, what prompted this was a couple of videos I saw. One was HELOC, where the guy was stating, "Don't borrow from the bank, borrow from yourself." And it seemed to be an ad they were saying. And I think, well, who do you think you're not borrowing from yourself when you get a HELOC? Well, let's define HELOC. HELOC stands for Home Equity Line of Credit.
Yeah.
It's a lien against your property. It's based on, if you have a first mortgage, it's generally a second mortgage, but there are people who own their houses free and clear who can get a first position home equity line of credit. But you are borrowing from the bank.
Yeah.
And the way it could be a great product for you. It's probably being used a lot these days to extract some of the equity out of people's homes, especially since we've seen a big increase in home equity over the last three or 4 years.
And let's hope it doesn't do a repeat of what they were doing back in 2005, 6. Let's take the money out and buy jet skis and crazy vacations and things like that.
Right. So first of all, let's talk about how they work.
Yeah.
A home equity line of credit is a variable rate instrument. Mm-hmm. That rate is tied to the prime rate, which is tied to the federal funds rate, which is the rate that the Federal Reserve changes when they either want to stimulate the economy, in which case they'll lower them, or if they want to slow the economy down, they raise those interest rates.
Right.
We've been on a pretty fast rate hike cycle recently with the Federal Reserve raising since March of 2022 in about a year.
Mm-hmm.
They've raised the rate 4.75%. They're probably going to do it in a couple of weeks, raise another quarter point, and maybe 2 more quarter point hikes.
Yeah.
You add 3% to the federal funds rate and you come up with the prime rate. Right now the prime rate's 7.75%.
Right.
That is what the interest rate is on a home equity line of credit for people with good credit.
Right.
Sometimes if you have an account with your bank, they might give you prime minus a quarter or a half. Mm-hmm. If your credit's not great, you might have to pay prime plus a quarter to as much as 2% to get it. Mm-hmm. It's an effective tool for many people who have very low interest rates on their first mortgage. If you have somebody somewhere between 2.75 and 4%, you probably don't want to do a cash out refinance and pay off debt or use that, take cash out of the equity of your house, extract it, and increase the rate on that first mortgage product from 3 to 7%.
Don't touch that. Right.
Probably don't want to do that. Brad, you mentioned there are good uses for home equity lines of credit and there are bad uses. First of all, if you wanted to fix up your house, and you have a ton of equity.
That's a good use.
Great use. It's probably going to increase the value of your home.
Ideally, yes.
Absolutely. From a tax standpoint, if you improve your property with a home equity line of credit, the interest on that mortgage will be tax deductible.
Versus
Well, can I put in my caveat?
Yeah.
Always contact your tax advisor to make sure.
Thank you.
I mean, I do know the rules, but you should advise it. But versus using it for consumption purposes.
Yeah.
Do you want to buy an RV? Don't use your home equity line of credit.
Right.
It's leaned against your house. You don't want to put your house. You want boats, cars, credit card debt.
Right.
I can see if you've gotten yourself into a tight situation where your monthly bills are tough to handle.
If the cash flow is that much of an issue, maybe
you can potentially use a home equity line of credit to do it. But you might run into trouble qualifying if your debt to income ratio is too high.
Mm-hmm.
But it might not be a bad idea. But it's not something that's free. The interest rate is pretty high on it, but it is better than a credit card, right? If it's 7.75% or right around 8.
Versus 21, 25, whatever. Yeah.
But you and I both have concerns.
Yeah.
Because we've seen in the past where people constantly, the early 2000s, the whole decade, the growth of that whole early 2000s seemed to be equity extraction.
Yeah.
Like the economy is based upon that.
Right.
People living beyond their means.
Leverage.
I can remember a date in the early. I had a friend of mine who I refinanced 4 times in like 3 years because the value of his house kept going up.
Yeah.
I had a conversation. I said, Bernie, love you to death, pal, but you're obviously spending $20,000 more a year than you can make. That can't go on forever. We had a housing crisis because of it and a pretty bad recession.
Yeah.
So let's hope we don't go there. But I understand what a HELOC is. It is a lien against your property. Mm-hmm. It's a variable rate. The monthly bill can be very low because it is billed interest only. Yeah. If you make that interest only payment, that balance will never go down. The interest only period isn't forever. It's typically 10 years. Mm-hmm. And at which point the note reverts to about a 15-year amortization. So you can see a big spike in that payment. If you take a lot of money out of your home equity line of credit, use it up to its limit, make an interest-only payment for those 10 years, you're going to see a
big shock.
Right, yeah, absolutely. So use it wisely, folks. It's a great tool. Don't use it for consumption purposes, but if I had somebody who wanted to fix their house up and had a lot of equity, it'd probably be a great thing to use.
Yeah. You know what they shouldn't use it for?
What's that?
Buying the new Girl Scout cookie.
I thought you were going to say buying. I thought you were going to say buying stocks and investing because there's a lot of guys on TikTok that are recommending taking money out on your home equity line of credit.
I don't like that either. But all right, but all right, dude.
I think you're wrong on this price because I did a little Google search when you were.
There was one box. Mm-hmm. All right, there's a new Girl Scout cookie flavor. Yeah. This is not necessary.
Have you tried it?
It's not no, because I'm now gluten free. Okay. And so I can't.
I'm still a Samoa kind of person.
All right, so here's the scoop. They've got this new Girl Scout cookie. What's it called?
Raspberry Rally.
Yeah. So one of the packages sold on eBay. I'm going to ask. Randy, you didn't say anything yet this session, but how much do you think it sold for, Randy?
Is there really this massive demand for these things?
Apparently, it's like
limited
crack.
Supply. It's the newest cookie by Girl. I didn't know until you brought it up.
It's chocolate and raspberry.
Right.
That combination.
I
didn't think how hot it would
be. They're crushing it on their sales.
Yes.
Quotas.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know. It's about, so what's a normal box go for?
$5,
$15,
$6, $5. I don't know.
Yeah. All right, so call it $10 to $15.
Yeah. All right,
sure. 8 to 15.
It might have been $5. I don't think $5's too low. Nothing costs $5 anymore.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, maybe that's true. In my day.
I mean, I got to imagine. So what's it? I mean, it can't be more than like a 4x, right? I mean, are we going over $100?
Yes.
$100 a box?
Yeah.
Really?
They're regularly going for $100 was the high. I saw $199.97.
Crazy how much they're going for. Yeah.
That's a lot of disposable
Raspberry
income.
Rally.
Yeah.
So,
right,
hey.
So are we really hurting too much on the economy? People are saying this for their cookies?
Dude. Well, it's a dichotomy in the economy. I think there's people who have plenty of liquid money, and there's others who are.
And you know what? It's a supply and demand issue, just like housing. So, hey. I brought it back to housing. How about that? All right. So that's the Unreal.
That's the other second part of the Unreal.
Yes.
All right. Who we focusing on?
We're
restaurant wine. Spotlight.
Yeah. We're going to spotlight this week.
I looked them up, too. The pizza looks good.
Oh, let me tell you. Some of the best pizza in town. I love it. Verde Pizza. It's a Neapolitan pizzeria. It's down in Canton. 641.
It's only Neapolitan, but isn't it coal-fired pizza?
Well, yeah.
Like 850-degree oven.
Super grill. Yeah, right.
The crispy
so good. Yeah, so 641 South Montford. It's at the intersection with Hudson Street. It's just down the street from one of my favorite clients who just bought down there. But anyway, their menu is amazing. So the last time I was there, I had this pomacante, smoked buffalo mozzarella, sun-dried tomato pesto, sausage, caramelized onions. Dude.
How much does that go for on eBay?
I'll pay more for that than a box of cookies.
Yes.
I'm going to tell you that right now.
All right, let me tell you, this pizza, I think I got like an 11-inch, 12-inch pizza, right? I was thinking, okay,
That's
I'll go
pizza.
in and get a half of it, take home.
No way.
Nope.
Right.
Ate the whole
I
thing.
would too.
Oh, my God. Oh, it's something to tell you. All right, so next time, I'm going to try their porchetta. That's herb roasted pork, smoked buffalo mozzarella, and Parmigiano Reggiano. Oh, I'm ready for that one. Anyway, they also, if you are, as I am, gluten-free, they have one of the best gluten-free pizza crusts
Can
in
you tell
town.
the difference?
You can tell a huge difference. And
I meant
and
taste. It's not.
It's not. The taste is good,
Gotcha.
but they've also with their ovens the crispiness and
important.
but the doughiness and the oh my gosh, yeah, just so it's amazing. Anyway, they also have a bunch of other things besides pizza, pastas,
Do you know who
calzones,
Dave
salads,
Portnoy
desserts.
is?
Dave
Dave-
Portnoy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Barstool Sports, who
Yeah.
does every day does a review of pizza.
Yeah.
What do you think? Well, if you were him, what would you give it? Now remember,
What's
he
his
doesn't give
scale?
any tens.
What's
he
his
goes
scale?
to 10, but the highest he's ever given is a 9.2 or 9.3 because he says, once you go to give a 10, what if you find something better after it?
All right, 11-7.
I hate to say that's an amateur score.
Oh, let me tell you, it's great though. All right, but
Anyway,
listen,
it's great.
Check them
pizzas.
out, yes. And during the week, they're open for dinner. On the weekends, they're open for lunch and dinner. They're at Verde Pizza, VERDEPIZZA on Instagram or at verdepizza.com. Just give them a shot. Folks, you won't regret it. They're just amazing. All right. So, Michael.
What?
Great episode. I love
Absolutely.
the
I'm
fact
sorry.
that we had our very first guest.
Hopefully he'll come back.
Maybe, yeah.
Because we
maybe
only
we'll-
scratched the surface. There's many other things we can talk about, like
So
financial
many.
education would be a great topic to talk
So
about.
many, yes, absolutely. And he's a great resource for a lot of things. So anyway, folks, our next episode, we're going to be talking about preparing your home for sale. We're getting ready to go into the spring, quote
already
unquote,
started.
spring market. That's already started. But, this time of year, this is when a lot of people still start thinking about it.
Right.
So we want to talk about the steps that you should go through. So join us for that in our next episode, Preparing Your Home for Sale. You can check us out if you want to listen to us, www.berealpod.com. You can listen right on the site. You can also submit comments or feedback, what you want us to talk about, how you think we're doing. Be kind.
No,
Please
you
be kind.
Be
Well,
brutal. I don't care.
Be real.
Yeah,
I
any
wanna be
feedback,
real.
all feedback
Is good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I see what you did there.
Right? Yeah.
Be kind.
But you can also listen to us on all the major podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Audio, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher.
Audible.
Yeah, Podbean. I mean, just whatever. You
Everywhere.
can find us everywhere. So, Michael,
Yes, sir.
somebody needs to reach you to talk about mortgages. How do they get in touch?
Call or text me. Best way to reach me, 443-310-0012. If you want to send an email, I'm also available that way. It's my name, michael.becker@spmc.com, michael.becker@spmc.com. Brad, same for you. How do they reach you?
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, so if you need to reach me by phone, 410-375-7550. If you need a quick response, text is often the best way, but you can call, you can text, you can smoke signals are fine. If you need to email me, my email is brad@homesbyvesta.com, HOMESBYVESTA. Brad@homesbyvesta.com. Michael, as always,
Been a
real
pleasure.
pleasure. Randy,
Thanks for
loved
having
having you here. Thank you so
I'll be
much.
back soon.
And we'll be back next week for Be Real.
The Maryland Real Estate Podcast.
Talk to you soon, folks.
Trap it.